It's a vibes. Where say family? Selah Shalom chiming in on the late night. Large up yourself. You know why? Cause it's a vibes, a late night vibes. It's a vibes. Yes, family, chiming in, your host, Selah Shalom. It's a vibes. Yes, family. Large up yourself, big up yourself. Selah Shalom TV, according to the text, as it is written. Cause it's a vibes. It's a vibes. Where's their family? Selah Shalom chiming in on this late evening. You know what I mean? Big up to the family, whoever up on this late night. Yeah, I would have came on earlier, but I was kind of busy, had some things to do. But I'm here though. I ain't skip a beat. We here though. You see it? Full body detox. You know how we do. You know how we do. Cause it's a vibes. And you know how we like to start off It's a vibe session with a nice little spliff to put in the air. Late night spliff vibes. Big up to the family. As you see, the title is called Babylonian Hebrew Israelites. The reason I titled it as such is because what I've been finding out is that there is a lot of Babylonian influence in the Hebrew Israelite tradition. And we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on the fact that Babylonia, Assyria, has a lot of influence over Israel. And this influence came over Israel during Israel's time in captivity. So, the same way the Israelites had Egyptian influence for being in Egypt for over a course of time, and then when Israel left Egypt, they built an image of the calf, the goat, or the calf, the cow, which in return was Hathar. So As Israelites lived in Egypt, they gained customs and culture of the Egyptians. And they brought that with them into the wilderness until they was told otherwise. So now the same thing applies with the Babylonian captivity. The Babylonians gained inspiration over the Israelites during the Israelites' stay in captivity. And that's what we're going to touch on, the Babylonian influence of the Hebrew Israelites. That's what I should have labeled it. The Babylonian influence of the Hebrew Israelites. Post-captivity. Post-captivity meaning after captivity. So the Israelites that was pre-captivity, before captivity, is a whole nother set of Israelites post-captivity. So before the destruction of Jerusalem, there was a whole different system and order in comparison to the second temple structure of Jerusalem, when the second temple was rebuilt. It was after the captivity is when you get the different sects, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, these different Israelite sects, even the Essenes. All this is post-captivity groups. But like I've been saying, that when Israel came out of Egypt, they was given laws, statutes, and commandments, basically Torah, instructions. And these instructions was for Israel to govern themselves while in the wilderness and when the establishment of the 12 tribes in Israel will be governed. So Israel was given law, statutes, and commandments. That's what Torah is, law, statutes, and commandments. Pre-captivity. So like really the prophets that came before the captivity are the prophets that did not speak of no 7-day creation story. They didn't speak of no flood. They only spoke law, statutes, and commandments. Any prophet speaking of the creation story and the flood came after the captivity, because that's when it was in the Tanakh, post-captivity. So we're going to touch on some of that right there, because the Torah is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one." But then in Genesis, you got, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." That's not Torah. That's not a law. That's not a statute, nor is that a commandment. So the question need to be asked: how do we go from "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one" to "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth," starting out the Tanakh or the Torah? Because see, it was originally the Torah, and then everything was added to Torah. Where nothing should have been added, it should have been set apart. So the writings of the prophet should have been over there. Any other writing should have been over there, while Torah is set apart. So we're going to touch on these Babylonian Israelites that came out of captivity, that was groomed in captivity. The proof of the grooming of them being in captivity is with Daniel. Daniel justifies and shows that the Israelites had to learn the Babylonian literature. So with that being said, any of the offsprings coming up out of Babylon would have Babylonian literature and influence in their doctrine. So we're going to touch on that briefly. We're not going to be up too late. Peter, I see you. What's good, family? Shalom Aleichem. I see you chiming in. So now, with the Babylonian Hebrews, one of the customs of Israel is the fringes on the garments, tassels. So in Numbers 15, verse 38, it states, "Speak to the children of Israel, and bid them that they may make fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations. So here, the Lord, whoever, is telling or making a statement saying that one of the primary customs of the Israelite dress code will be fringes in the borders of their garments. And they should hold that throughout their generations. But what I find interesting, let me give you an example of what the fringes is. That's the fringes on one of the brothers right there. You see them? On the bottom part, that's the fringes. But what I find interesting is that in history, we see the same fringes on the borders of the Babylonians. So the question is asked, if the fringe was only given to Israel as a commandment by God, why is the Babylonians, Assyrians, wearing fringes when that's supposed to be only accustomed to the Israelites or supposed to be exclusive to the Israelites? And here are the fringes, and here are the fringes on the garments of the Babylonians, Assyrians. See, the red arrows is pointing to the fringes on the garments. These are the same fringes that these brothers got on here, as you see at the borders of their garments. But here you see in antiquity, the Babylonians is wearing it. Now this is, when Israel came into captivity, the Babylonians was already dressing like this. So what is the Babylonians doing dressing with the fringes like the Israelites? Because the Israelites, they wear fringes in antiquity too. They got proof of the Israelites wearing fringes. Let's get that quick fast of Israelites wearing fringes in antiquity. So now, okay, we got a couple things that I uploaded. So here we have a picture of the Israelites depicted playing music. But if you notice, look at the borders of their garments. They got on the fringes as well. But the Babylonians got them on too. Who instructed the Babylonians and the Assyrians to wear fringes on the garments when that's supposed to be exclusive to Israel? See that? And another depiction we have right here. You see the fringes on the garments again. And there you have it. There go the fringes. The arrows is pointing to the fringes on the garments. See that? But here in Numbers, it says, "Speak to the children of Israel and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations." But why is the Babylonians wearing garments with fringes on them when it's supposed to be exclusive to the children of Israel? See that? That's a question you got to ask. And then again, you see the Israelites going into captivity with the fringes on the garments. You see the customs of the Israelites. So like I say, the Babylonian, Assyrian, Hebrew customs are all one and the same. They all come from the same family tree, the Mesopotamian civilization. The same way you got the Nile Valley civilization, the Mesopotamian civilization is the same thing. But among the Babylonians, Assyrians, and the Hebrews. So you see, it's clear that the Babylonians been wearing fringes on the garments before Israel came into captivity. So that's the question they need to ask. Who instructed Israel to put on the fringes on the garment? Or the Babylonians, I'm saying. It could have been God, right? Because he told Israel to do it. It could have been God, right? Who's to say? We showing you the evidence in history of other nations or other cultures wearing fringes on the borders of their garment outside of Israel. Now, who made up that? Who set the tone for that? See that? These are things you got to consider when you decide you want to follow customs and culture thinking it's coming from the Hebrew Israelites, and it's coming from the ones who put you in captivity. Or did God make a covenant with the Babylonians and Syrians as well to wear fringes and garments? Who's to say? Your Bible don't mention it, but the historical evidence shows it. And another form and custom that the Babylonians wear, if you notice, is the headdress. You know what I mean? You know, we show the turbans already. But then they got like that bandana that they wear. See if I can find that. It's like a bandana that they wear, and I see Israelites rocking that as well. And we're going to touch on that. Yeah, so we're showing about a lot of, see, there you go right there. They go the headband. See that headdress on that, brother? You got Israelites that copy that same style of headdress. But this headdress is Babylonian, as you see. It's Assyrian Babylonian, that headdress. Now, let me show you the headdress to show you how the Israelites copy that style of headdress. We come back here. We showed the garments. Now we're going to prove the headdress. Boom. Look at that. Boom. Babylonian Hebrew headdress. Look at the guy from antiquity, the Assyrian, and then look at the Hebrew Israelites mocking and wearing the same headdress or the bandana going across the forehead. See that? Babylonian influence among Hebrew Israelites. We're showing the headdress. We're showing the fringes on the garments. Showing you the comparison. So look at the headdress. Look at the comparison of the headdress. Coming out of ancient Babylon. So where did these Israelites get this concept of wearing this headband? Because there's no depictions of Israelites wearing a well, you know what? There is actually depictions of Israelites wearing a headband, but not in this form of fashion with the symbols, with the stylistics. Now they do got Israelites wearing headbands, but it's just more like a bandana over the head. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, they got the bandanas over the head. See that? There you go, right there. They got the bandanas over the head, just like these brothers. But look how close to the Babylonian styling it is. See that? So what I'm showing you is Babylonian influence among the Hebrew Israelites, and this could well be post-captivity. Fringes on the garments. Israel united in Christ wearing garments. Babylonians wearing garments. Numbers 15 say what? What did it say? Speak unto the children of Israel and bid them that they may make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations. Not only throughout their generations, but throughout the who? The Babylonian generations. They wore it too. See that? Now that's just dealing with the custom and culture and dress code, let alone the literature. We ain't touch on the literature. We just talking about the appearance, the customs and culture that resembles Babylonian ways. Israel's supposed to be unique in its own right, but here you see them copying Babylonian ways from antiquity. That's why I said when the Israelites went into captivity, they came out with Babylonian influence. Cal P, I see you. What's good, King? Cosmo Cal in the building. So they got Babylonian influence just from that alone. So this is just a custom and culture. Now let's go into the literature. Let's go into the literature. Like I told you before, Torah is laws, statutes, and commandments. And when you have laws, statutes, and commandments, you have order. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how the book and the laws is trickled down. So here in Matthew 22, verse 36, the question is asked, Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the laws of Moses? Jesus replied, You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Let's stop right there for a second. He said this is the first. So what does that tell you? Yeshua or Jesus is reading from the law. He's telling you the law. He said the very first law. What did he say the very first law is? You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. You notice he didn't tell him in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth and then said this is the first and greatest commandment. He didn't say that. Yeshua or Jesus gave you the laws, statute, and commandment, the first one. And then he said, a second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law on all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. So here, what Matthew chapter 22, verse 36-40 reveals is the first two laws of Torah. And that can be validated in Deuteronomy where Moses say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one," screaming the first law. So again, the verse states, "Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses?" Now, if Moses came with a creation story, and that's the very first chapter 1, verse 1, Jesus could have easily said, "Oh, what is the most important? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the most important. That's the first law." That's what he should have said, according to how the book is constructed. But what did he say? You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. So right here, we got the first two commandments being that. But then, in Genesis, it gives you a 7-day creation story, which is not Hebrew in origin. It's Babylonian origin. Ben said that. And we're going to show that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's Genesis 1:1. But hold up. Yeshua just said that you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. This is the first and greatest commandment. The first. But here in Genesis, this is the first verse 1, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Bereshit bara Elohim ha'aretz. But here, you must love Adonai El with all your heart, mind, and soul. This is the first and greatest commandment. So now we have a conflict of scripture dealing with the literature. Now this is how it works. Before captivity, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart. That was the law. After captivity, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. When the Tanakh was given, this is what changed. When the Torah was given, this is what it was. The first law, the first two laws. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. Love thy neighbor as thyself. That was Moses telling the Israelites that 1,500 years prior to Yeshua. And Yeshua validates it through this verse saying that the first two and greatest commandments is what Moses said. But then, nowhere did Moses tell them, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was the first commandment, or was the first thing that should be opening your book. So how did in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth start off the Tanakh, or start off the Torah, when originally it's supposed to have been, love the Lord thy God with all thy soul and strength. And that's the first commandment. So the way that happened, the way that Genesis came into play, is when, like I say, the Israelites went into captivity. When the Israelites went into captivity, they started adapting the Babylonian customs, like you see here with the headdress, and even the fringes on the garments, on some of them, because the Babylonians got garments. But what they adopted was this here. This is where they got it from. The Babylonian Amunah Elise, the 7 tablets of creation, is where the Hebrews got the 7-day creation story from. And how they got it is when they went into captivity. When you read Daniel chapter 1:4, it says that the Israelites, the Hebrews, had to learn the tongue of the Chaldeans and had to learn the Babylonian literature. That's Daniel chapter 1:4. So this is some of the literature right here that they had to learn. The 7-day creation story. And this 7-day creation story is where you get this right here. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That comes from this. It didn't come from this. You must love the Lord your God with all. That's not starting off the creation story. That's not even the creation story at all. The law, statutes, and commandments ain't got nothing to do with creation. Those are instructions given to a people who left out of Egypt. But then, when you went into captivity under Babylon, and you was commanded under the Babylonian ruler to learn the Babylonian literature and tongue, you had to learn these things. You had to learn the Emunah Elish, the 7-day creation story. You think them Babylonians ain't teach you about the 7-day creation story when you was a captive in Babylon? Of course. That's why you got it in your Tanakh. Because you adopted it and added it too. And the language that this was written in was, you already know, cuneiform. So when the Israelites came into Babylon, they was introduced to the Emunah Elish, the 7-day creation Babylonian cuneiform script. This script right here is what this is goddamn about. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That shit came from this shit right here first. Came from the cuneiform first. Before that shit was translated into Hebrew, it was translated in the it was in the Babylonian language first. So that's the Israelites going into captivity. So them same cats going into captivity, when they had offspring, they was learning this right here. That's why it's called the Babylonian Talmud. It's a Jewish book, Babylonian, because they learned it from when they was in Babylon. Who was the Babylonian deities? Anu, Enki, Enlil, Ninkarsag, Tiamat, Marduk. Marduk is the god who created man on the 6th day. So now when we come back to the creation story, we come back here on the 6th day God created man. In the original text, the God that created man was Marduk, the Babylonian deity. So when God said, "Let us make man after our image and likeness," in the original Babylonian text, the Emunah Elish, it was Marduk doing that. So when the Israelites adopted the story, modified it, meaning change. Modification means change. What did they change? They translated from the cuneiform into the Hebrew, into the modern Hebrew. And then when they changed it to Hebrew, they changed the names. They changed Anu, Naki into Elohim. And they left it at that. They left out the names of Enki, Enlil, Ninkarsag, Tiamat. You know what I mean? They just gave you Elohim, they gave you God, they gave you Lord God, they gave you the serpent. They gave you titles with no names. That's what the Israelites did when they modified this Babylonian text. And then the next thing they adopted, the next text they adopted was the flood story, the Emunah Elish, the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh is the Babylonian flood account. That's another thing they adopted, because like I said, Moses did not come with no flood account when he came off when they left Egypt, when he came off the mountain. When he came with the laws, he ain't come with no goddamn story of Noah. He ain't come with no 7-day creation story. What Moses said when he came off the goddamn treetop? "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one. Love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and strength." This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second, love thy neighbor as thyself. That's what Moses came down saying off the tree, off the mountaintop. He ain't come off the mountaintop saying, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and this was the first day," and all that crazy shit. That shit came from the Babylonians, in whom the Israelites adopted it from. That's where they got it from, the Emunah Elish. So you got to go back and unravel history and unravel the text, because Bible means scrolls. Scrolls are they're a collection of scrolls. So what you have in the Bible is a complete, compressed, amalgamated text, and you think it's supposed to read from Genesis to Revelation as one whole. But originally, these were different scrolls collected, selected, and put together. So now what we're doing is unraveling the selection, bringing you back to where the sources come from, where they got it from. So we're showing you where the Hebrews got the 7-day creation story from, the Babylonians during their stay in captivity. We're showing you where they got the flood account from, being the Emunah Elish. The Epic of Gilgamesh. This is the literature that the Israelites was exposed to when they went into captivity. Because remember, Daniel said they learned the Babylonian tongue and literature. So this is the literature that they learned, and that's the tongue. the cuneiform tongue. So that's the cuneiform tongue they learning, and that's the literature they learning. The same way we learned the English alphabet, and then we learned the English literature, the old English stories, Santa Claus, or whatever the case may be. That's where it's coming from. That's where they get it from. See that? The Epic of Gilgamesh. That's supposed to be Gilgamesh. That's your Noah. You see what I'm saying? That's one who's supposed to have been saved from the flood and all that. These are the existing accounts, the flood account, the 7-day creation story. These are the accounts left on earth that was inspired by the false god Anu-Hasaj. And he inspired his angel emissaries, Osiris, Sutgantian, to go down to the earth and give mortals these stories of creation. And this is the result we have today, these false stories of creation by a false god. And you have it in your Bible now. So this is where the Epic of Gilgamesh comes from, the flood account. That's where it comes from. Now, here's a map of Israel's captivity, going into captivity. Now, before Israel went into captivity, that's what they had, Torah. See that? So, during the time of the prophets like Jeremiah, the prophets that existed pre-captivity, they was reading Torah. They was prophesizing the coming events that's going to transpire, which was the captivities, because they strayed from what? The law, statutes, and commandments. They was trying to get Israel to return back. So they was reading Torah. Jeremiah and them niggas wasn't talking about no goddamn 7-day creation story or no flood of Noah. They was talking about breaking the laws and the events that's going to come with breaking the laws. All the prophets that spoke pre-captivity never spoke of no goddamn flood and the creation story or none of that. They started speaking that shit after they came back from captivity. So going into captivity, they had Torah. Coming back from captivity, they had the Tanakh. That's the return of captivity. So they're leaving Nepal, Susa, or Iraq, or Far East Persia, and coming back, or West Persia, or coming back into Jerusalem to build a second temple during the time of Ezra, 4th century BC, with the Tanakh. But before the Tanakh was created, all they had was Torah, just law, statutes, and commandments. Coming back now to coming back from captivity now, they got the Tanakh. And with the Tanakh, what came with the Tanakh? What came with the Tanakh? The creation story. The creation story. The creation story and the flood. And the flood account. Those are two things Israel came back into Jerusalem with. The creation story and the flood account, compiling it with the Torah, creating the Tanakh. See that? The Tanakh is the adding of the prophets and the story of creation and the story of the flood. Before that, though, prior to that, they were just rolling with Torah. So out of Egypt, coming into the land of Canaan, or in the wilderness, Moses going to Mount Sinai, get the laws. They get the laws, go up into the land of Israel to establish themselves. But what they got is the law, statutes, and commandments. During the times of the Judges, Chronicle, them niggas ain't talking about no creation story and no flood accounts. All they know is law, statutes, and commandments, because they wasn't exposed to no creation story and flood accounts at this particular time. But when they went into captivity in the 7th, 8th, 5th century BC, around that time, that's when they got exposed to the cuneiform. When they went into captivity is when they got exposed to this language. When they went into captivity, that's when they got exposed to that. The Amunah Elish, they got exposed to that. The creation story, They got exposed to that. All that they got exposed to when they went into captivity. So on their way back out of captivity now, coming back to Jerusalem to reestablish the second temple, what they got now? They got the Tanakh. They got the Tanakh. They don't have the Torah, but they got the Tanakh. They got that. They coming back with Bereshit bara Elohim wa haaretz. That's what they coming back with Jerusalem with. They coming back to Jerusalem with this now. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Or in the beginning, Elohim, God's created the heavens and the earth. That's what they coming back with. But this, which was the first, supposed to be the first and greatest of all commandments, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, which is the first and greatest commandment, that has now been pushed back all the way to goddamn Deuteronomy. All the way to Deuteronomy or Exodus, they pushed that back when that's supposed to be starting off the Torah. Chapter 1, verse 1 of Torah is supposed to be love the Lord thy God with all your heart and strength. And the second is supposed to be love your neighbor as yourself. That's how it's supposed to start Torah. But what you have is in the goddamn beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, which shows you that your Bible been tampered with. You've been given a Babylonian creation story. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, which is rooted in this. First tablet. The first tablet is see, even in the Emunah, at least their first tablet is talking about the light from the day God created the heavens and the earth. They ain't talking about no love the Lord your God with all your soul and strength and love your neighbor as yourself in the 7-day creation story in this original form. So you adopted it, Israel. You adopted the customs and culture of the Babylonians coming back from captivity. Those who was living in captivity, the children that was born in captivity, they had to learn the Babylonian literature, so they would have been familiar with the cuneiform language. They would have been diverse with language. They probably would have been speaking the cuneiform and the Hebrew. So the scribes who translated the literature would have had to bring the offsprings who grew up knowing the literature, knowing the language. That's like a Mexican coming to Mexico who can't speak English, but then his child grows up in America, learns English, and can speak Spanish, and then he may take some Spanish literature that's not translated in English and translate it because he can speak both languages. Same thing with these Babylonian Hebrews. They learned the cuneiform, and when they got the Emunah Elish, when they got these creation stories such as the Emunah Elish, the scribes, the Hebrew scribes now who understand the cuneiform and understand the Hebrew, guess what they're doing? They translating the cuneiform in the Hebrew and modifying the changes as they do it. The same way Ptolemy II commanded 72 Jews or Hebrews to translate the Tanakh into Greek, becoming the Septuagint. So those Israelites they would have had to been able to speak Greek and speak Hebrew in order to make the translation work. So the same way the Tanakh was translated into the Septuagint is the same way these creation stories and flood accounts was adopted into the Torah, making the Tanakh. So by the time the Ptolemies got it, they got a corrupt version of the Torah. Because they added and polluted the Torah by putting a 7-day creation story to start out the Torah, when it's supposed to have started out with Hail Israel, the Lord thy God is one. See that? This was going on. You got to unravel the scrolls and the history and the time frame to know when these things took place. Because we already see it took place during the captivity. See that? Post-captivity, pre-captivity, they had Torah. Post-captivity, they came back with the Tanakh. That's why Yahshua was like, in your law, it says. In your law, it says. He didn't say our law. He made a separation from cats following the laws of the Tanakh. So that's what you have. The return from captivity, that's what they came with. So they came with the Tanakh from 4th century BC on the way coming on down to the Messiah. At the second temple, when they started the second temple, when Yahshua came in there whipping niggas with the second temple, it was all corrupted. It wasn't genuinely pure. It wasn't the old Jerusalem pre-captivity. First Jerusalem and second Jerusalem, or the first temple and the second temple, totally different. The second temple got Babylonian influence written all on it. And as you see, with the customs and culture of the fringes on the garments, you see that with the Babylonians, and you see that with our Hebrew Israelite brothers here. You see it. And you got another example of another Babylonian brother with the fringes. And you see it coming across the chest, coming down. You see it on the borders of the garments. Just like the scriptures say. Just like Numbers say right here. Speak to the children of Israel. It might as well say, speak to the children of the Assyrians and Babylonians too, and bid them that they may make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations. And the Babylonians and Assyrians, they got the same fringes on as well, the same as these cats. But the only thing is that this is an antiquity. This is the origin. This is the primary. The primary source. And then coming back to the headdress. See that? The Babylonian influence of the headdress. And even the cat with the side view. Look, if they would have had more hair on top of their little turbans, it would have poked out. It would have poked out kind of like how this cat turban is. You see how his turban is? If he ain't had no hair under there, it would have been looking like this. See that? But if them cats, like the dude with the afro, if he would have had that thing on, that black cloth over his head, his shit would have been looking like that. Got the fringes, got the turban, and got the black thing hanging over the head. No different than these cats. They just ain't got no hair. So what I'm showing you, yo, is just some of the Babylonian influence of the Hebrew Israelites with customs and culture and literature and doctrine. Showing the evidence. Oh, where's that family chiming in? Yahweh Messiah King. Eric Hamilton, peace, peace. Kalula, I see you. It's a vibe, you done know. Tasman was good. I see you. Netsaguma, okay. However you pronounce that was good. All right. Global Purpose, peace family. I see you. What's good? So is this where the Talmud come from? Yeah, the Talmud, Babylonian influence. It's a lot of things that, you know, they added, they created, you know what I mean? But as far as the source of the creation story, the flood account, and even some of the customs and culture definitely could be Babylonian influence. What I'm showing is just the dress codes, the customs and culture, and I'm showing you some of the origin of the literatures, like the flood accounts and the creation story. And then you got the laws, commandments, the Leviticus laws. You know what I mean? The Leviticus laws, that's pre-captivity. So they already had that. Anthony, what's good? Truth Seek, I see you. Super cool, peace, what's good? You over here exposing these goddamn Babylonian Hebrew Israelites. You know what I mean? Exposing them. It's a vibe, you dig? Showing and proving, yo. What caught me really is this goddamn headdress, though. I was like, man, look at that shit, yo. That shit look just like the shit the Israelites be wearing. You know what I mean? Israelites in the captivity. So I said, like, these cats right here that you see, their offsprings is the one who ended up growing up in captivity, and more likely would have been the scribes learning the language. And here you have the Ge'ez calendar. You can see the Hebrew written, and it says this calendar was 10th century BC. So this would have been pre-captivity right here as well. This calendar. The Ge'ez calendar would have been pre-captivity. And then here's another. These are clips, pics I got from previous videos from years ago. But you have another glyph where it talks about the land of Yah. 9th century, 1900 BC. And this is during the second rule of the 12th dynasty. So this is pre-Moses right here. This is the 12th dynasty during the dynasty of Moshe. And this is from the tale of Senuhi, inscription of the land of Yah. You know what I mean? And it gives you a description of the land of Yah, which is the land of Canaan. Because Senuhi traveled to the land of Canaan, but the land was called the land of Yah. It said it was a goodly land called Yah. Who called Yah? Don't Israel call Yah? Yah. But this is recorded in ancient Egypt, and they got the glyphs of Yah in hieroglyphs. And then, of course, I showed you the name of Yahweh, the Shasu of Yahweh, the Shasu, the worshippers of Yahweh. So again, you got the you got the Yahweh name in recorded in Egypt. So anybody who tell you that Yahweh name ain't found nowhere in history, you can report right back to these clips and show them. Smoking on that good ganja. So yeah, yo. So the Babylonian influence is real. And the proof that the Babylonian influence is real is through the submission of Jehu, the king of Israel. When you bow down like that and kiss the boot, you showing submission. So if that person decides to say, all right, since you submitted, you under my command now. I want you to learn the Babylonian literature and teach this to your offspring. I want your children to learn this shit right here, the 7-day creation story. I want your children to learn this. So when he bowing down when he bowing down like that, while he got him bowing down, he said, all right, since you submitted, I want you to teach your followers and your children that's going to be living in here for 70 years. You're going to teach them this right here. This is called the Emunah Elish, and this is our 7-day creation story. You're going to learn this since you submitted, and since you got your face on the ground, you showing a token of submission. Now you're going to learn this Babylonian literature. You're going to learn this 7-day creation story. In the 7-day creation story, you're going to start off your Bible. You're going to write a new book because we decimated your Jerusalem. You lost all your scrolls. All your records are destroyed. So now you're going to have to write a new book. And these are what I want you to add to this new book. Whatever you want to call it, you can call it whatever. But you're going to add this story of creation. Matter of fact, you're not just going to add it. I want you to start off the book with the story of creation. Our story of creation, of how the world was created. And then I'm going to give you our story of what? The Emunah Elish, the flood. I'm going to give you our account of the flood. And then you can add whatever you want to it after that. As long as you add those two things, starting off the book, we good. You can add whatever you want. As long as you put the Epic of Gilgamesh, as long as you put that, and then this right in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The 7-day creation story, the flood, the 7-day creation story, and the flood, let those be the beginnings of your book. And then from there, you could add whatever. And that's exactly what happened. The 7-day creation story is what starts out Genesis. And then after Genesis, after the genealogy, it goes into the next story is Noah and the flood. That's the next big account. And then after the flood is what? The story of the prophets with Abraham. That'll be where the Israelites will be adding their text, because the Babylonians ain't got nothing to do with Abraham in that sense. The Israelites is more concerned with Abraham. So after he kissed his ass, now he got him hook, line, and sinker. You're going to adopt this literature. And then you got the influence till this day. Showing the headdress. Showing the fringes on the garments. Fringes on the garments. You know what I mean? The fringes on the garments, yo. So historically, we showing the evidence. Fringes all on the garments. Boom, fringes on the garments. So yeah, they were the proof that the Israelites got fringes all on the garments. With Babylonian influence with the literature. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength. But instead of that, nope, you're going to get this. We're going to start you off with this. We don't want to see that at the beginning of our book that we're going to authorize before you go back to Jerusalem. See that? So that's what's going on here, yo. Hebrew Israelites with Babylonian influence. You know, I won't be caught up with them Babylonian vibes. You know what I mean? You know, I want to get caught up in them Babylonian trouble, Joe. Because it's a vibes. What do you say? Let's play some music. Let's vibe to some music, you know? Let's put on some music right quick, yo. Let's create the vibes. Yeah, that sounds good right there. Oh, yeah. Hits the vibes. Yes, family. You know how we do, exposing these folks' gods and these folks' religions and these folks' doctrines. We ain't even touching Oahspe yet. We're just exposing Babylonian customs and culture and literature. The Babylonianites. That's exactly what they are, the Babylonianites. That may have to be a song, Tez. That. Right, and that goes with everything and everyone that's been conquered, controlled, and ruled. Yep, because it survives. So yes, family, as you see, we exposing the influence of Babylon in the Hebrew Israelite community. Like I say, the Bible is an amalgamated text. You got Babylonian influence. You got Egyptian influence. There's a lot of influence in the Bible. Collection of scrolls is what it means. They just don't have the Hebrew scrolls. They got other scrolls that was added too. Older scrolls that was modified through the ages. Angelic peace and blessings. I see you, family. Touching on the Babylonian influence. You know what I mean? Showing you the Babylonian literature, the customs, the culture, the fringes, captivity. Yep. Look at this depiction of Moses, last rule of the 12th dynastic. That's Moses right there, y'all. Amenemhet the Fourth. Yeah. It's a close-up of the Israelites going into captivity, looking just like the Babylonians. The Babylonians and the Israelites look one and the same. You can't tell the difference. See that? Look. See that? Look at that. That look exactly like this. But these are Israelites. And these are Babylonians or Assyrians. They look like family. Well, guess what? They are family. They cousins. They cousins, just like the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Hebrews, all them is family. All them is from the line of what you would say Shem. The Shemite people. That's exactly what they are. Yeah. Look at that. These are Assyrians swimming underwater back then. Made depictions. See that? Israelites ain't got history like that. They destroyed Israel history. These Babylonians looking just like Israelites. Look at that. Boom. Look at that picture of an Israelite and look at this picture of a Babylonian. Niggas look exactly the same. Showing you how strong the resemblance is between the two. And come in here with them. With the headdresses. The Israelites wearing the headdresses. The Babylonians wear the headdresses. See that he got his headdress on? They got their headdresses. So this is where a lot of this customs and culture come from, yo. It comes out of Babylonian Mesopotamia. Niggas in Africa wasn't wearing too much shit on their head. It was hot. Niggas rocking them bald heads in Kemet. They're like, forget that, nigga. It's too hot to be rocking all that hair. Those are some Persian warriors, the immortals. Like in the movie, that with Xerxes 300, and the Persians came with the immortals, the warriors. It's them cats. So yeah, you know what I mean? Just showing you Babylonian influence among the Hebrew Israelites. The literature they adopted, going into captivity, returning from captivity. So that's the map. So that's the map of them returning to captivity. So there was a different people when they came out of captivity. There wasn't the same Israelites. The same way the slaves that came to America ain't the same motherfuckers today. We the offsprings of the culture of America today is not the same as the offsprings who first came with the raw African who still upheld his original tongue and his original language. Shit. By the time we had a third, fourth generation, nigga, we was done for. A whole new created being. The Negro. The Negro was an experimentation. We are an experiment. Slavery was an experiment. Created the Negro. That's why niggas is out here going crazy. That's why the violence is so high. Because this whole infrastructure was started on crime, violence, rape, and murder. So you reap what you sow. You can't get mad because society is the way it is. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's the Babylonian influence of Israel. Captain Kid said she's stupid. Yo. Awaken, what's good? Selah Shalom, what's up, brother? I see you. Yo, you know Australia always in the building. Shout out to Australia. You know what I mean? Closest part to the continent of Pan. You dig? Shout out to Australia. What time is it out there in Australia? What time it is out there? What y'all got popping out there in Australia? It's funny how it say Australia. I got ya at the end of that. Interesting. But yeah, so the Babylonians, man, they the ones who got a lot of influence over the Israelites, even up until this day. I showed you the evidence of the dress codes, the fringes. You know what I mean? A lot of these cultures was running the same. You don't really see too many Egyptians in antiquity rocking fringes. You know what I mean? You don't really catch them rocking fringes, but you see that all throughout Mesopotamia. You see the fringes all throughout there. But when you go to like Egypt and shit, you don't see that shit. See that? There ain't no fringes on L. Ain't no fringes on the god L. That's the god L right there. Where L come out of? L in Hebrew is God. That's God. That's your God right there. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's him right there. You see how he's sitting on his throne? You see how they say Jesus is going to be sitting on the right hand of God? Well, God's sitting right there. Jesus is going to be sitting right next to him, right? On the right hand of God. See, you've been deceived to think that this God is the creator, sitting on the throne in heaven. This is your concept of God. That's God. They go Baal. You got El, you got Baal. 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 Look at the headdress that Baal got on. It's the exact same headdress that Osiris got on in the judgment hall of Ma'at. Look at the Egyptian gods. Look at the deities. Them niggas ain't got on no fringes. See that? Let me get Baal out the way. Look at the Egyptian gods. They ain't got on no fringes. See that? Where the fringes at? Where the influence of fringes coming out of Egypt at? But guess what? We see it all through there. All through, hold up. We see it all through here. We see the influence on the fringes here. There you go. There you go. And there you go. The fringes. You see that shit all throughout antiquity with the Babylonians. And you see it among the Hebrews. Where is that? Boom. Boom. Fringes. But you don't see that shit in Egypt. You don't see the fringes in Egypt. You don't see it there. Sumerian gods, look, they still rocking it. They rocking it. This is the Babylonian customs and culture when Israel came into captivity. This is what they was exposed to. That's the cherub. Then the garden said he was gonna. The cherub guarded the Garden of Eden. 2 cherubs. This is where the shit came from, yo. Tree of life. That's where the shit came from. Your Bible talk about the tree of life, the tree of knowledge and good and evil and all that. That's where it came from. They're talking about creating man. There you go, Sumeria. Creating man. That's where it came from. That's the origins of it. And then it got modified later. Egypt, Canaan, creating man. That's where all this shit came from, yo. All these ancient stories that it's in the Bible that was modified into smaller texts came out of these ancient stories of Egypt and Sumer. Look at the creation of man coming out of Egypt, but then look at the creation of man coming out of Sumer. You see the semblance? 2 different cultures, but giving you a creation myth of creating man in the same manner. There it is in Egypt. There it is in Sumer. And God said, let us make man. See? God talking to his partners. They was partners right there. Yo, let us make man. And they go, the man sitting on his lap. Same thing with Canaan. Canaan talking to goddamn who that? The dude in the back. Yo, let us make man. Boom. They go, your Elohims in both pictures. God said, let us make man in our image and likeness. Male and female made he them. Man, y'all better wake up to realize where these stories coming from. That starts off your Genesis account. These are false stories of creation by these fallen angels. See that? The tree of life. Look at the fringes on the garments. This is Babylon. This is Babylonian. Look at the sun disk of Zarathustra, the Persian deity. You find that among the Hebrew inscriptions in antiquity. Oh yeah. Yeah, they got that. So you got to be mindful, yo. While you thinking your Bible ain't got no pagan influence, this shit is written all over with paganism. If you want to be technical. This shit got pagan all written all over this motherfucker. The tree of life came from there, the cherub, the serpent. All these things come out of ancient Egypt and ancient Sumer. Now look at Osiris. Now this is the judgment hall of Ma'at. Look at that. The niggas ain't got on no garments. I mean no fringes, Ain't no fringes on the borders of no garments right here in any of this. But you see it there though. You see it among the Chaldeans. You see it, but you don't see it when you come back to Egypt. Showing you that the Egyptians and the Sumerians had two different customs and culture. You see the Sumerians and the Babylonians and Hebrews, they dealt with a lot of hair, facial hair, lofty beards, locks. But the Egyptians, you don't see that. Look at Hanifa, he clean cut. Look at Osiris, he trimmed up. Them niggas wasn't rocking no crazy ass hair like that in Egypt. But look at Osiris' headdress. Look at Osiris' headdress. Now look at Baal's headdress. It's one and the same. Customs and culture of the gods. That's another thing I can do, customs and culture of the gods. I'm showing you the customs and culture of mortals. We can show you customs and culture of the gods, how you see similarity of dress codes of the gods. And you wondering, well, how can a Canaanite deity be wearing the same headdress as an Egyptian deity, and they're not even in the same region, in the same geographical region? The reason being, they used to work together. That's the beauty about the Oahspe. It exposed how these angels used to work together before breaking apart. I exposed that yesterday. How Ashtaroth and Baal was working for Osiris before they split up and created their own heavenly kingdom. See that? Dude, that's Osiris. This is basically when the Bible was talking about Judgment Day. You know what I mean? God sitting on the throne. You see how Osiris is sitting on the throne? You see how El is sitting on the throne? You see that? They sitting on a square. That's their sign of authority. So you got Osiris sitting on the throne playing God. You got El sitting on the throne playing God. See that? Yeah, yo. That's what's going on with this shit, yo. The customs and culture. So that's the cuneiform, Zarathustra, the symbol of Zarathustra. But you find the symbol of Zarathustra among some of that cuneiform writing. See that? Not cuneiform, I'm talking about the Hebrew writing. Now look at this. That's the Hebrew writing, but look at the Persian influence, the symbol of the, what do they call that? The Farvahar in Persia, that winged disc, that symbol right there. But look, the writing ain't cuneiform. The writing is Hebrew. What is Hebrew doing with cuneiform, with the Persian deity in this language? And look at the dude on the left. Look at the fringes on his garment. Same thing again. You see that fringing's customs and culture come out of Persia, out of Mesopotamia region. It don't come out of Africa. It don't come out of Egypt. So you see the Paleo-Hebrew or the Phoenician Hebrew written. And there we go to the Hebrew language, the Paleo-Hebrew. Cuneiform, Paleo-Hebrew. This is what Abraham spoke. Offsprings and descendants. They adopted that. They adopted it. Don't let them fool you to think otherwise. So I'm just going through some of the pictures showing you how the Babylonians and the Syrians and the Hebrews is really all one of the same people. These are the people of Ebla. Hold up. It's kind of blurry. They got on fringes too on their garments. This is Assyria. They're supposed to be Syria, like 3,000, 2800 BC. That's the time period and the timestamp they put on Ebla. And that's the little town of Ebla. This is in Syria. So yeah, yo. You know what I mean? And more Far Eastern influence. Like I see, you got the Sadhu of India. You see the long locks. So all this is Shemite customs, not Hamite customs. All this is Shemite customs with the long hair and the beards and the turban and all that, and the robes. That's Shemite custom, yo. See that? Look at that Sadhu. Look at his bed, right? Now look at his bed in comparison to maybe the Shemites' beds. You know what I mean? They got the lofty beds, as you see in that picture there. You got the Persia, and then you got the Sadhu. You got the Persia, the Persian, the Sadhu. Sadhu live in India. But India is Shem too. You had Shem is India, Persia, Pakistan, all the way to Iraq, Mesopotamia. All that is Shem. The people with the lofty beds. That's what them there. You know what I mean? So yeah, yo. All of them is one of the same people. So you're going to find Babylonian influence among the Hebrew Israelites because that's their ancestral custom and culture. Yes, sir. We say Sharon, peace and blessings. It's Ball Dias. No ball is not. What the hell is you doing in the house? Damn cat. It's Ball Dias. No, ball is ball and Dias is Dias. Those are two separate deities. Those are two separate deities. Malik Maccabee, what it do? I see you, King. Shalom Maki, abundance of blessings. Most definitely, yo. We was wilding yesterday. We was looking at what Sarnet and them talking about the blood and redemption through the blood and all this blood talk. Yo, that shit was crazy, yo. Oahspe explains how all those gods' kingdoms real, but that do not mean it hell in the skies, rabbit hole deep. Yeah. Kind of lost me in the last part, but yeah, though. Deities was here before Baal. Yeah, Deities came. Deities is Anu Hasaj. He took on the title of Deities. So it was Anu Hasaj, and he took on the title of Deities, then he took on the title of Lord God as his personal name. You know what I mean? So it was Anu Hasaj, then Osiris, then Baal and Ashtaroth, then Luamung and Kabbalichthys and Jibril. Nuxa. And then Jibril. Jibril was really the last of the false gods that was dominant. You know what I mean? Islam. Through Jibril, he was the last of the false gods to wreak havoc. You know what I mean? So started with Anu Hasaj. Anu Hasaj is responsible for the Babylonian creation story, that Amuna Elish that I showed you earlier. Alright, Anu Hasaj is responding out. Now I gave you the history. Now go into the gods who gave you these stories. Go back. Now the 7-day creation story. Where's that? Hold on. So this 7-day creation story, that shit came from Anu Hasaj, the false Lord God. He's the one responsible for giving you the creation story, and he's the one responsible for giving you the flood account, the Amuna Elish, or the Epic of Gilgamesh in Babylonia. And then the Kemetics got their creation story with Gebnut and Heshu. So he's responsible for the creation stories. That's what he laid down. And then Moses came with the laws, commandments, the law, statutes, and commandments at the beginning of the 24th arc cycle. 1553 BC is when the law, statutes, and commandments came. So when Moses got the law, statutes, and commandments, he upheld that until captivity. The Israelites upheld that until captivity. When they went into captivity, they was introduced to the Babylonian literature, which you see here. And then when they came back to rebuild the second temple, is when they added the other accounts, the Anuhasaj accounts, the older accounts. And then when Luamung came on the scene, with all Luamung didn't do too much of creating a new doctrine. What Luamung did was just compile what was already there. So he inspired Ezra to select and compile scrolls and put together the Old Testament, or basically the Tanakh. That's why I said the Amunah Elish was incorporated or added to the Tanakh. So Ezra compiled scrolls and made the Tanakh. That's why I said the Tanakh is a collection of stories as well, because you got the law, statutes, and commandments, Torah, but then you got the stories of the flood, the stories of the creation story, the stories of the prophets. All those were added. They were compiled, selected from the scrolls during the time of Ezra. And by the time Constantine came, he did the exact same thing with the New Testament. And that was under the inspiration of Luamung. So Constantine and Ezra, all they did was compile and selected scrolls that was already there to compile a new book. So that's what took place with the text dealing with the gods. Blood sport, that's right. Yes. So what should one do if they want to escape the false gods, Bible, etc.? How should one transition, and what true creator should they find and follow? That's a good question. You know what I mean? Because I would suggest that, acquired knowledge is very important, because if you don't have a selective viewpoint, a selective category of information, a doctrine to view your opinion on, or to select your belief, you could easily be tricked up. You could easily be tripped up. So when you have more to play with, you could better select and evaluate. So if you just got the Bible, you're going to automatically think that you got it because that's the only book you got, and you're not selecting from no other book. Somebody may have the Quran, that's all they may know, and may feel like, oh, the word of Allah is what it is, and they have no other doctrine to select from. You know what I mean? So the more varieties of books you have, you can pick and sift and wait and sort which one makes sense. You know what I mean? So the Oahspe tells you about the difference between the creator and the gods, tells you about the true God, the false God. So it shows you all these variables, and you can make a better assessment and judgment of how you should identify with the creator. You know what I mean? We already exposed the creator ain't no angry and jealous God. Do not worship idols, figures as all the highest. Treat everyone as brothers and sisters. Right? We don't worship no idols. But see, the crazy thing is that in the Bible, God is an idol. God is a man in the image of, God has created man in his image. And the image of man is supposed to be the image of God. So God is an idol of worship. So if you was to worship God, if God say bow down and worship me, you'll be bowing down and prostrating before man. But the creator is not a man. We clarify that in the Oahspe, that you cannot see the creator as you see thy fellow man. So with that, our concept of the creator is incomprehensible. We'll never see the creator as you see your fellow man. But in the Bible, they got you believing that you're going to see God sitting on the kingdom, sitting on the throne in the kingdom, and Jesus is going to be on the right hand of God. See, those are not the creators. Those are deities. And those are false deities, because those deities got you believing that they're the creator. That God sitting on the throne better declare the creator, or if not, he a false God. If he declare himself as the creator, then he's false, in the image of man. Born of a woman. You see that? Yes, my brother. What did Baal do? Well, Baal, he rose up, he broke away from Osiris, Because see, Baal, all of them, Osiris, Baal, and Ashtaroth was all up under Anu-Hashtaj. When Anu-Hashtaj fell, Osiris broke away, and Baal and Anu-Hashtaj became subservient to Osiris. That didn't work out. Then Baal established his own base, and that was in the land of Canaan. That's where you find a lot of evidence of Baal. You can find Baal in Canaan and Egypt. There's deities of Baal in Egypt, or Baal in Egypt. And you find them in Canaan. I just showed you some of the depictions earlier. So with that, you know what I mean, his position was like any other false god, to gain souls, to get a earthly domain, so he could start populating spirits in his heavenly kingdom, which are the souls of men and women. So when God, in 1 Samuel 15:3, when he told him to kill off Melech, the Amalekites, and he told him to kill off man, woman, and children and infant, that was the God of Israel telling Israel to go do that to the Amalekites, the Canaanites. But Baal was the God of the Canaanites. So these are a battle between gods going on right now in the heavens, and mortals are acting it out on earth. But Baal, like I said, Baal is like any other god. Collect souls, make them subservient slaves in his heavenly kingdom. That's the root of every false god, regardless of what god it is or what strategy they use to imprison the minds of mortals. The end result is the exact same thing. For you to believe in a doctrine, you believe in a doctrine while you're alive on earth. Once you cross over in spirit, you become a subservient slave to that God you believed in while alive on earth. That's the root cause of every false god. And that works with true God as well. If you follow a true God, when you cross over, you'll go to the true God's heavenly kingdom, so you can progress and elevate to get to the Etherian kingdoms. Our duty is to get to the Etherian realms. That's our inheritance. A corporeal body made that man may learn corporeal things, but death I made that man may rise in the firmament and inherit my Etherian kingdoms. So our destiny is to rise in the firmament and inherit the Etherian kingdoms, but we first got to go through the first, second, and atmospheric grades before we can get there. So the false gods, they're not teaching you that. They're teaching you that you're going to go to their heavenly kingdom and bow down and worship them. That's the difference between worshiping true God, rightful ruler of heaven and earth, and the false god seeking self-glorification. Yeah. Shalom to the family. Yeah, we exposing these Babylonian gods. You know what I mean? Because it's vibes. I mean, touch on the scripture or two, yo. Touch on the scripture or two, yeah? Touch on these spirits. Let's see where we have to start here, so. This is in the Book of Judgment, right? The Book of Judgment, chapter 23, verse 15. This then is what befalls the nations and people of the earth. Alike and like the angels of heaven minister unto mortals, except wherein thy God and his lords provide especially otherwise. The inorganic heavenly regions to the inorganic inhabitants of the earth. So basically they showing you as above so below right here with that verse. The whole concept is as above so below is what's being expressed here. It states, this then is what befalleth the nations and peoples of the nations, alike and like the angels of heaven minister unto mortals. See that? So the inspirations upon the nations is inspired by the angels of heaven, but the inspiration is based off your inspiration. So if your inspiration is evil, the angel inspiring you is going to be evil. If your inspiration is righteous and good, the angel inspiring you will be righteous and good. So it states, alike and like the angels of heaven minister unto mortals, except wherein thy God and his lords provide especially otherwise. So it says the inorganic heavenly regions to the inorganic inhabitants of the earth. Inorganic meaning unorganized. You know, like places that are unorganized. So if you're unorganized, you're going to be met with unorganization among the heavenly regions. So now verse 16 states, now behold, I said unto thee, in the olden times, try the spirit and see if they be of God. Now how many times I read that out the Bible? Let's get that out the Bible. Let's get that verse out the Bible where it says test the spirit. And we just read in the Oahspe. It says, now behold, I said unto thee, in the olden times, try the spirit and see if they be of God. He said in the olden times. So what is the olden times? The Bible. Let's get that verse. Let's get that verse. Test the spirit to see if it be approved. Exactly, Sharice. Test the spirit. Let's see what verse that is. Chapter and verse. Okay, that's John. Got it. So 1 John chapter 4 verse 1 it states, King James, behold, no, beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirit, whether they be of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. So right there in 1 John chapter 4 verse 1 it says test the spirit. And what the Oahspe state in verse 16, now behold, I said unto thee in the olden times. What I just read, that which was of the olden times. What does it state here? Try the spirit and see if they be of God. Verse 17, for the angels who wander about on the earth know not my kingdoms, and they deny me, and deny all order and system and discipline in heaven and earth. That's why he said there are many false prophets. What the verse say? In the Bible in the King James, it says, because many false prophets are going out into the world. What did the Oahspe say? Why you got to test the spirit? For angels who wander about on the earth know not my kingdoms, and they deny me, and deny all order and system and discipline in heaven and earth. And each and all such angels coming to mortals do so on their own account, assuming any form and name, and they may find acceptable unto men. See that? So they may come telling you, I'm Jesus. Telling you I'm this person, Christ here. Lo and behold, Christ there. Lo and behold, Christ there. These are the spirits of darkness, assuming any name, assuming any form, claiming to be the people of old, or using those methods to deceive you, because they got an agenda. What's their agenda? To collect souls. So if they can get you to believe in them, and you believe in them, and when you cross over, they got you. So again, it states, and each and all such angels coming to mortals do on their own account, assuming any form and name they may find acceptable unto men. Verse 19. Such angels have not yet passed the first resurrection, nor belong to any disciplined kingdom in heaven. See that? This is why I say test the spirit, to see if they're of God. Because many will assume any form, any name, which is acceptable to men. So verse 20, and all mortals such as I have, and all mortals as such as I have named to thee as the best and highest of mortals, and to the spirit world after death, only in the inorganic regions of heaven. See that? So again, it says all mortals. Hold on. So again, it states, such angels have not yet passed the first resurrection, for nor belong they to any disciplined kingdom in heaven. And all mortals such as I have named to thee as the best and highest of mortals, and to the spirit world after death, only into the inorganic regions of heaven. So see that? Verse 21. Neither can they enter the second resurrection until they abnegate self and learn affiliation. See that? So you can't even enter the second resurrection until you learn affiliation, brotherhood. So even the same way these Israelites got brotherhood in the kingdom, that's a good thing. Like how these camps got brotherhood, that's an excellent thing. Like I said, they like 85% there. The only difference, the downfall of the Israelites is they concept of God. They worship a deity and not the creator. They worship an angry and jealous God, but the brotherhood and the structure is there. Oahspe says once you get that, the abnegation of self and affiliation is the beginning of the second resurrection. See that? Verse 22. Therefore, after death, they remain for the most part in their former places. So again, coming back to the ancestor. Oahspe always shows you where the spirits be lingering at. So what it say? Coming to the ancestor. Let me get that background out. They go to picture of the ancestor. What the Oahspe say? Therefore, after death, they remain for the most part in their former places. The merchant in his counting house, the banker in his bank, the shipper in his place, the pope in his palace, the king in his, the farmer in his. So they tell you that after death, you linger around the place you most frequent. So if you was a homebody, you're going to be home. If you was a wealthy person and your business was in the bank, you'll be lingering in the bank. Yo, I seen a spirit over there in Wachovia the other night walking past and shit. Spirit of a rich man whose business is dealing in the bank. Just showing you how spirits linger based off what they are bound to on earth. Verse 23. Neither have they power or wisdom to go to another place, and they stroll about like one that hath lost his master. Neither will they affiliate with other angels. See that? She's by herself. She's not affiliating with other angels, strolling about. But in stubbornness and morseness persists in working out an individual identity until they are broken down in sorrow and darkness, which may be in a few years, or may be 100 of years. Oh, girl look like she's been in the early 1900s. She could be well over 100 years in spirit. And then it states, and then my holy angels, my holy ones, come to them and carry them away to the Isaean school. So they linger for a while until it gets to the point where the holy angels, the angels that are more advanced, what they do is drag them and take them away by force and then get them going. You know what I mean? So if you're not advancing, there's going to be angels that's going to come drag your ass off and get you going. They're going to be like, all right, nigga, that's enough dragging your feet. You've been dragging your feet for too long. Let's get it going. So again, it shows you how the spirits of the dead linger in the former places. It's interesting. So now, here's another example. This is chapter 24 in the book of Judgment. God said, one rule have I given unto all men. This is true God. This is not the false God talking. This is true God talking. True God said, one rule have I given unto all men, whereby it may be known what kind of angel minister unto thee. That rule is a mortal's own manifestation and behavior. Let's read that again. One rule, God said, one rule have I given unto all men, whereby it may be known what kind of angel minister unto him. That rule is a mortal's own manifestation and behavior. See that? See how Oahspe is showing you how you can eventually see how to navigate with the spirits based off the expression and behavior of mortals. Our expression and behavior is the outward manifestation of our spirit. This flesh body is just a covering for the spirit. The spirit looks like this. God said, let us make man. The image of the spirit is like this, in the image of man. So when you cross over in spirit, you're going to be looking like this. You're going to be a spirit looking like a man. You still have figure, shape, and form. But look what it states here. God said, one rule have I given unto all men, whereby it may be known what kind of angel minister unto you, your guardian angel. That rule is mortal's own manifestation and behavior. So if a cat is always out here wicked, angry, and upset, that's the angel ministering unto that person. Vice versa with goodness. Verse 2. Whoso manifests serving himself chiefly hath little light from my organic kingdoms. But whoso serveth Jehovah But whoso serveth Jehovah by laboring for others with all his wisdom and strength, see that? The key to Jehovah is what? By laboring with others with all his wisdom and strength is attained by the light of my organic heaven. See that? Of my organic kingdom. So if you want to get connected with the Creator, you do what? What the verse say? Whosoever but whosoever serveth Jehovah by laboring for others with all his wisdom and strength is attended by the light of my organic kingdoms. See that? So that's how you get Jehovah's attention. The service done unto others with all thy strength and wisdom, and you'll be attended with the light of his organic kingdom. Verse 3. Judge thyself, O man, as to thyself. Who and what angel attend thee? See that? Oahspe is telling you, judge yourself. Look within yourself to see what angel attendant is ministering to you. Because like I said, these angels is around you moving outside of visible light. And they inspiring through, they can move through you, they can engraft on you and inspire you. So if you're always angry, that's showing you what type of angel is ministering to you. An evil spirit. So it states, judge them not. Hold up. All right, verse 3. Judge thyself, O man, as to thyself, and who and what angel attend thee? Verse 4. Behold, one man will say to thee, I have a band of wise and most ancient angels who attend me. Another will say, I have very gods who attend me. Verse 5. Judge them not by their words, nor by their names professed, but judge them by the work they accomplish. See that? Nevertheless, hold thy peace in regard to them. Meaning, don't judge them, don't say nothing, but just observe. He said, don't go by what they profess. Yahshua, Bashimayak Yahushua, Jesus Christ, love Jesus, Allahu Akbar. He said, don't worry about that. He says, judge them not by their words, nor by the names professed, but judge them by the work they accomplish. Nevertheless, hold thy peace in regard to them. So he said, judge them by the work they accomplish. If you accomplishing destruction, is you accomplishing peace? That's what we're looking at. You could profess anything. Anybody can say anything. Talk is cheap, right? Verse 6. This rule do I also give unto thee in regard to angels who attend mortals, as for example, thou knowest that a soldier is not permitted to go away from his regiment and pursue other employment. The soldier belongeth to his regiment. He is one with his regiment. He moveth therewith the affairs and business of his regiment are his affairs and business also. Here's the catcher. Even so is it with my organic heavens, wherein newborn spirits become volunteers to accomplish resurrection. And thereafter they apply themselves not to isolated developments, but to affiliation, for attaining to the higher kingdoms. The least of my kingdom complex. The least of my kingdom plateau contains 500,000,000,000 angels, and many of them contain 5,000 million. These are composed of thousands of branches, suited to the various talents created withal, so that all who enter find a delight for their adaptation. See that? This shit already set up. The heavenly kingdom is glorious. It's beautiful. All those people transpiring and crossing over in spirit, when they get to that place and see them glorious kingdoms, they ain't no coming back. They ain't even thinking about the earth realm no more. They like, nigga, I see you when you get up here. This shit's sweet. And then you seeing other people, so you're not like you isolated and alone. You in there with a sea of other happy people. And they welcoming you like, come on in. It's like festivities in effect, or a party. Come on in. But it's peaceful. You worry about my family on earth later. Let me see what's going on here. See that? So that's what's going on here. It says, when thou wert taught of old to say, may thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. It was instructions given thee to lead thee in the method of my dominion. So who came with that? Like I said before, who came with the kingdom of God is at hand? Yeshua. But what did it say? When thou wert taught of old to say, may the kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. It was instructions given to thee to lead thee in the method of my dominion. Verse 14. As to wandering spirits, they have not yet passed the first resurrection. But such as have enlisted in my organic heaven are called Essenes, while learning the rites and disciplines, and are said to be in the first resurrection. And such as have become organic workers are in the second resurrection, and this is a kingdom of heaven. See that? So they're distinguishing the first from the second resurrection. The second resurrection is dealing with organic affiliation, while the first you're being enlisted and you're learning the rites and disciplines, the rites and ceremonies. It says, this rule is also uniform in all my heavenly kingdoms, that after entrance to the second resurrection, none of the angels return as individuals to communicate with mortals. See that? Except as herein mentioned, or except when especially commissioned by me or my Lord. Think not that my discipline is less systematic than that of a mortal general's army. See that? So God ain't out here loosely like shit, just out here, vague and, unorganized. Nah, he said, yo, think not that my discipline is less systematic than that of a mortal general's army, or that the heavens of thy God are permitted to run at loose ends and without order or concert of action. See that? But be reasonable, O man. Weigh these things according to thy own observation and judgment. For this is not in all the heavens any wide departure from that, though has in some form a counterpart resemblance on earth. See that? So it says, be reasonable, O man. Weigh these things accordingly to thy own observation and judgment. For there is not in all the heavens any wide departure from what thou hast in some form a counterpart resemblance on earth, as above so below. So when you cross over and get up there, you ain't going to be just totally unfamiliar with the realm. You're going to be identifiable with some things, because there's going to be some things that's on earth that's going to semblance and resemble that which is in heaven. See that? As above so below. Yes, my brother. Hooray and peace, King. Long live the gods on the earth. Yes, brother. Blessings. Joseph, I see you, King. What it do, King? Peace and blessings. Yes, I. Who was the true God for the 25th arc cycle? You know what? That was not revealed in the Oahspe. They didn't reveal who the atmospherian God of the 25th arc cycle was. Who's going to be reigning for the, I guess, this first 200 years, or the coming God that'll be reigning for the next 400 years after 2048. But they do give a description of the female goddess, the Etherian goddess, who brought in the Ark of Cosmon. You know what I mean? It reveals that, but it reveals the Etherian goddess, but it doesn't reveal the atmospherian God. I guess they don't. I guess since the Oahspe lays out the system in order, by the time it comes to Cosmon from the book perspective, it's like, are you familiar with the system in order? So regardless of who it is, you already know that how the chain of command works. But they left that out. They didn't reveal who the true God was. Yes, King. Bless up. Cause it survives. Yeah, yo. We just touching on spirituality now. We went into the history of the Babylonians, the Babylonian Hebrews. Now we're touching on a little scripture dealing with spirituality, lingering spirits, how spirits can influence you, and how your outward manifestation of your character and your behavior is showing you the ministering spirit that is attached to you. So look at the violent crimes we got going on today, the shootings, the killings. Look at the spirits of drudges that are inspiring mortals at this point to commit crime, to commit evil. Look at this Easter weekend. Shootings all over the place going on. Shootings, killings all over going on. Look at the increase of evil. I was watching the news. They said it was 142 mass shootings already this year. shootings. So I'm like, look at that. Hush. So I'm like, look at that. Look at the increase of evil, the increase in the influx of the spirits of darkness. So all those people that's getting murdered and killed, you know, they had lives they wanted to live. They had dreams and goals. So now, hush, they spirits got vengeance and anger on it now. Now that they realize they've been shot and killed or however they crossed over, they spirit got vengeance and hate. And that inspiration is driven and is motivated on another human being. And you know what I mean? Like, you mad all of a sudden. Why, you know, you just get angry. You want to go do something. Because these spirits move through you. They move through you daily, hourly. You know what I mean? Don't get it twisted like you can't be influenced by these spirits of darkness. They're able to influence everyone, good or bad. Because it survives. You know what I mean? Like we read lingering spirits. The spirits of the dead linger. Where it says that at? Where the spirits of the dead linger. And it says, therefore after death they remain for the most part in their former places. Therefore after death they remain for the most part in their former places. Check this.
So it's freaky, is what it is.
For now, Heather and Josh say they will stay inside this place with Lily until they're able to save up enough money and move out. Reporting in Highland Township, I'm Alan Campbell,
about the
7 Action News.
Now here's the other one.
Of the unknown.
On 5
What
spooky
is
security
real?
camera footage.
And what
Yeah, a
is
Metro
it
Atlanta
doing
mom
there?
says
A
it
family
actually
in
shows
Highland,
her son's
Michigan believes
ghost.
their house
CBS 46's
is actually
Yasmina Alston
haunted
spoke
and
with
thinks
some
something is
paranormal
harming their
investigators to
little
see if it's
girl.
real
7
or
Action
if
News
it's a
reporter
hoax.
Alan Campbell went to the
Here
home
in Canton,
to
Georgia,
see
a
for
group of
himself.
paranormal investigators look into the supernatural. So it was only right that we asked them about what a mom says she saw in her security footage.
catching Lily's
It's
attention.
definitely unexplainable.
Whatever it is, the
A
family
Metro
says
mom says
it
her
needs
home
to go.
security footage
It's almost like
captured
she
her
sees
son's
something that we
ghost.
don't.
Definitely
It's
tell
an
that
image
in the
Heather and
photo
Josh
there
say
is
is
a
haunting
human
their home.
figure.
On
It was,
Facebook, Jennifer Hodge posted
chilling.
that she was watching TV
It was
with her
literally a
daughter
chill
when
down
an
your
alert
spine.
on her phone said, your
Like that
entryway
what-if
camera
factor.
saw someone.
Like, is
Here's
this what
it
I just saw?
showed.
No one's around at the time,
video
and
a few weeks ago, what
something
appears
gets
to be
captured that we
something
can't
moving in
explain.
front of the baby
Hodge
crib.
posted that the
I freaked
figure looks
out.
just
I
like her
stopped
son
what I
Robbie,
was
who died in
doing, and I ran upstairs and I
2016.
grabbed my
Hodge
daughter.
told media
Heather says
outlets her
this
son died of
so-called
an
ghost
accidental
scratched her
drug
daughter Lily
overdose.
and
Now we
attacked
showed the
her
pictures
too.
to
It scares
paranormal
us
investigators
that
Heather
it
Thompson
could do
and Stephanie
something
Forte
else.
with
I mean, there
Paranormal
was
Georgia
even a morning that I
Investigations.
woke up
They
and
agree
felt
with
like
Hodge.
something was
okay,
around
now
my,
I'm
like someone's
understanding
hands
what
were
she's
around my
talking
neck.
about. But
A
it
team
was
of
definitely
paranormal
a human
investigators
figure.
came
I mean,
in
there
and
wasn't
tried
anything
answering some of the couple's
questionable as
questions and
to,
concerns.
okay, maybe that's a
Sasha's
curtain
father,
that's
Jim,
billowing, or
says
maybe that's,
it may be someone who
appliance,
lived
but
in this
it's
house
definitely
before.
a human
The story
The
that I
two are
was
part of a
told
group that
was
investigate
the
homes and
gentleman that
businesses of those who think
lived
they're
here
dealing with the
originally,
paranormal. They tell me security footage can be
committed
helpful,
suicide,
but to confirm an actual home
apparently,
visit would be necessary.
by jumping out this window.
Hodge posted she is happy to be able to know her son
which
is always
is,
with
of
them.
course, one full story down.
The couple says they don't know why this so-called ghost is targeting them, but say they don't want any part of it.
But it's not physically just going after her. It feels like it's going after
In
myself
Canton,
too.
Yasmina
I couldn't
Alston, CBS 46
Get an
News.
explanation out of it.
See, that picture is equivalent to this right here. It showed a picture of her son in the kitchen with like his gown on, like that hospital gown that you put on, that white gown. It's like he had on his hospital gown still. The same way this lady right here got on her garment still from the time she probably died or whatever she may have had on. And what did the scripture say? Therefore, after death, they remain for the most part in their former homes. So the Oahspe is not telling you no spooked out shit. It's showing you evidence, hardcore evidence, present time, that the spirits of the dead do live and linger in the homes where they was born at. Well, not necessarily where they was born at or wherever they from. Whatever they was living at. Oh, okay, I see. He was hearing both of them at the same time. Let me see the rise. Let me go back to the
attacked her
All
too.
number 5,
scares us
spooky security
that it
camera
could do
footage.
something
Yeah, a Metro
else.
Atlanta mom
I mean,
says it
there was even
actually
a
shows her
morning that I
son's
woke up and I had
ghost.
felt like something
CBS
was
46's
Hear what
Jasmine
I'm
Olsen
saying?
spoke with some
Hands were around
paranormal
my neck.
investigators
A
to see
team
if
of
it's real
paranormal
or
investigators
if it's
came
a
in and
hoax.
tried answering some of the couple's
Here in
questions
Canton,
and
Georgia, a
concerns.
group of paranormal
Josh's father, Jim,
investigators
says
look into the
it may be someone who
supernatural.
lived in
So it was
this
only
house
right that we
before.
asked
The
them
story
about
that
what
I
a
was
mom
told
says
was
she
the
saw in her
gentleman that
security footage.
lived here
It's
originally.
definitely unexplainable.
A Metro mom says her home
Committed
security
suicide.
footage captured her son's ghost.
Apparently.
Definitely tell
By
that
jumping
in the
out this
photo
window.
there is a human figure.
On Facebook,
which
Jennifer Hodge
is, of
posted
course,
that she
one
was watching
full
TV
story
with
down.
her daughter.
See that? See, the ghost is equivalent to that right there. One and the same.
Any part of
All
it.
new at 5.
It's gonna start over, but yeah. Yeah. That ghost picture is just like this ghost picture. So yeah, the spirits of the dead do live, yo. They linger around. You know what I mean? You could be a lingering spirit just like that. That's what Oahspe tells you. You got to get into the organic heavens. You got to get into the first resurrection. You got to get enlisted into the rights and discipline of the first resurrection. And then from there, you get affiliated and then you get into the second resurrection. But yeah, I saw a ghost yesterday at 4:35. Word? Explain that. Where you see that? 4:35 in the AM? Yeah. That's about the right time. Oh yeah. I got another one too, Joseph. Check this one out. I got another one. I showed that the other day. You probably wasn't on live. I showed it. I think it was yesterday or the day before I showed it. Let me get the other clip and it may clash.
Really a chill.
All new at 5.
What if factor? Like, is this what I just saw?
Caught on the couple's nanny cam
Hey,
video a
check it
few
out,
weeks
Joseph.
ago what appears to be something moving in front of the baby crib.
I freaked out. I stopped what I was doing and I ran upstairs and I grabbed my daughter.
Heather says this so-called ghost scratched her daughter Lily and attacked her too.
It scares us that it could do something else. I mean, there was even a morning that I woke up and I had felt like something was around like someone's hands were around my neck.
A team of paranormal investigators came in and tried answering some of the couple's questions and concerns. Josh's father, Jim, says it may be someone who lived in this house before.
The story that I was told was the gentleman that lived here originally committed suicide, apparently,
That committed
by jumping out
suicide.
this window. Which is, of course, one full story down.
The couple says they don't know why this so-called ghost is targeting them, but say they don't want any part of it.
It's not physically just going after her, it feels like it's going after myself too.
I couldn't get an explanation out of it, you know. So it's
Look how the
freaky.
baby rolls up.
is what it is.
For now, Heather and Josh say
See that? Yeah, so it's showing you that these homes got lingering spirits, like the verse say. Therefore, after death, they remain for the most part in their former places. And notice how the investigator said that the guy committed suicide in the house. And now his spirit is just lingering, walking around in the house. Being a lingering spirit. See that? So Oahspe is validating what the news is saying. That the spirits of the dead do live, first off. And that they linger in the former places that they lived at. So if we was to cross over and die, we're not just gonna float off. We're gonna go back to our former places until it's time for us to be taken and moving on and move forward, so we don't remain a lingering spirit. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's deep, King. Shit went deep, yo. Yeah, the spirits of the dead do live, yo. That shit deep. They exist They exist right outside of visible light. So, although we seen an ancestor here, she made herself visible, but she on the borderline of visible light. So I know she's vibrating at a slower frequency instead of a faster frequency. So she may be vibrating at 710 nanometers, right enough for we could see her, but she's looking invisible, but we could see through her. That's what the ancestor probably vibrating at, right outside of 700 nanometers. Or a little bit more than that. Visibly seen. Yeah, man, so that shit run deep, bro. Things that run deep, Let's vibe for a minute because it's a vibes. Let's tap into the cosmos and vibe out into the cosmos, yo.